My name is Mark Reynolds. I'm 42 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've worked in commercial logistics. For 15 years, I was a senior operations manager at Titan Freight Lines, based just outside Columbus, Ohio. I'd overseen truck routes across 3 states, streamlined dispatch, and helped the company grow from a small fleet to a multi-regional powerhouse. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't the kind of guy who needed praise. I just got things done. My team knew that. My bosses knew that. Or at least, I thought they did. Beat. Slight tension enters the voice. Then one day, they introduced someone new, Ethan Ward. He was mid-30s, freshly minted from some MBA program in Chicago. Clean haircut. Slick smile. Dressed like he was headed to a networking gala, not a logistics warehouse. Management said he'd be shadowing me to understand the ropes. Said I should train him up for a possible leadership role. I didn't flinch. I've mentored younger guys before. It's part of the job, and to be honest, I liked sharing what I knew. So I gave him everything. My systems. My spreadsheets. The shortcuts. The contacts. Even how to calm down a screaming trucker who's stuck in a snowstorm 3 hours behind schedule. He listened, smiled, nodded, took notes, asked the right questions. I thought, maybe this guy's got it. Maybe I helped build the next great manager. Beat. Voice dropped slightly. And then, just 8 weeks later, my GM called me into a conference room. Ethan was sitting there already. In my chair. My boss wouldn't even make eye contact. He slid a folder across the table and said, "Effective Monday, there's going to be some restructuring. You'll be reporting to Ethan moving forward." That was it. The guy I had trained, the guy who didn't even know what a DOT compliance log was 3 months ago, was now my boss. He smiled at me. Didn't even try to hide it. "Appreciate everything you taught me, Mark," he said. "This'll be a smooth transition." A smooth transition. That's what he called it when he stripped my title, cut my salary by 30%, and reassigned me to a desk near the loading dock, next to a broken vending machine that hadn't worked since 2019. Long pause. Music fades to a tense hum. I sat in my car for nearly an hour that day, watching employees walk by the window, laughing, eating lunch. I'd kept that place running through winter storms, driver strikes, supply chain collapses. And now I was just another logistics analyst with no say, no power, no respect. But here's the thing about quiet men like me. We don't shout when we're angry. We plan. Before Ethan ever showed up. I loved my job. I know that's rare to say these days, but it's true. I enjoyed building systems that worked. Watching a 300-truck dispatch run without a single delay. That was my kind of satisfaction. My days started at 6 a.m. coffee. Dock walkthrough. Routing board checks. Call with Indiana Dispatch. I knew every driver by name, every warehouse manager's birthday, and exactly how many minutes it took to load a double pallet shipment on dock number 7. I wasn't the kind of guy who needed promotions or plaques on the wall. I just wanted things to run smooth, and people to feel respected while doing it. And for a long time, they did. My wife, Dana, used to joke that Titan was my second home. I'd call her from the road, usually during freight audits or supplier visits, and she'd always pick up with, "Is my logistics rock star finally taking a break?" She supported everything I did. We'd been together since college. No kids, just the 2 of us and our dog Bailey. On Sundays, we drive out to Hoover Reservoir, pick up subs, and sit by the water. Life wasn't flashy, but it was good. Simple. Predictable. Until the board started asking questions. About growth. About future-proofing. About succession planning. It started small. HR asked me to draft an SOP for every process I ran. I didn't think much of it. "We just want your expertise documented," they said. Then came budget talks. Suddenly, my request for new route tracking software got pushed. Then Dana mentioned something strange one night. "Hey," she said, "do you know a guy named Ethan? I think I saw him on your company's LinkedIn page, announcing something." I checked it. There it was. Excited to join Titan Freight Lines as Strategic Growth Manager. Can't wait to learn from the best. Learn from the best. I chuckled at first. Took it as a compliment. But that post already had likes from our VP, our GM, even our CO. A week later, my GM pulled me aside. Said he wanted me to mentor Ethan directly. "You've built our logistics backbone, Mark," he said. "Nobody knows the operations like you. Help him get up to speed. He'll be shadowing you." I shrugged and said sure. It didn't seem strange at the time. Ethan came in that Monday with a notepad, a fresh haircut, and the kind of confidence only people with no pressure seem to carry. He was charming, no denying that. Always had a joke. Always had the right answer. Asked questions like, "How do you personally define logistics success?" Not bad questions. But something about them felt rehearsed. Still, I let my guard down. I taught him how to plan multi-regional drops, how to handle dock managers who yell more than they think. I showed him our internal vendor scorecard, the one I'd built from scratch. I gave him everything. Even when he started making suggestions to change my methods, I didn't push back. "That's just the new blood coming in," I told myself. "Let him find his own path." And yet, there were moments I caught him taking credit in meetings. A slide I'd built, now under his name. A vendor I'd secured, now on his KPI sheet. I ignored it. Chose peace. Chose trust. Because that's what you do when you believe in the system. I didn't know it yet. But every answer I gave, every shortcut I taught him, every contact I shared, was just a step closer to him replacing me. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because I made him look good. And by the time I realized what was happening, it was already done. The change didn't happen overnight. It was quiet, subtle, like a leak in a tire. One day, I noticed Ethan had stopped copying me on department emails. The next, I found out about a client call after it had already happened. At first, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he was trying to be more independent. Maybe he thought I needed a break. But then, my team started asking questions. "Hey Mark, are we still using your shift rotation spreadsheet? Mark, did you approve this new vendor Ethan's pushing? Mark, are you still our supervisor, or—" I brushed it off, told him to roll with the changes. But inside, I was starting to see it. The plan was already in motion, and I wasn't part of it. A week later, HR called me into a casual check-in. They said the company was restructuring to streamline operations. That my title, Senior Operations Manager, would now be Fleet Analyst. Less responsibility. Less oversight. Less pay. Ethan sat in on that meeting. Silent the whole time, like a kid watching his science project win a ribbon. They said I could still add value to the team, but I needed to adapt to new leadership. I nodded, said thank you, walked out without saying another word. That day, I got moved from my office near the glass conference room to a desk in the corner, back near the loading dock. My nameplate wasn't even on the new desk. The drawers were sticky. The chair wobbled. There was a mouse trap under the printer tray. And across from me, the vending machine that had been broken since before COVID. No one said it, but I knew. This wasn't a demotion. It was an exile. Music tightens. Suspense escalates slowly. That's when I started watching. Every morning, I arrived early. Earlier than Ethan. I reviewed logs, shipment times, routing software timestamps. I started seeing gaps. Entries were being altered after approval. Fuel reports didn't match trip mileage. Vendor invoices had different totals than the ones I had previously signed off on. At first, I thought maybe it was human error. Happens all the time in logistics. But this wasn't human error. This was someone playing with the books. Quietly. Carefully. And every mistake I found was in Ethan's favor. One afternoon, I found a file buried 3 layers deep in a shipping folder labeled 2021 Vendor Archive. The spreadsheet had a different naming convention than anything else in the system. Looked like a personal doc. I opened it. And there it was. A full list of vendor payouts. With invoice totals that didn't match any official company record. My hands didn't shake. My breathing didn't change. I just plugged in a flash drive and copied the file. That night, I went home and made 3 backups. One to my personal drive. One on cloud. One I locked in a drawer next to a signed, notarized letter with a timestamp. I didn't know what the full story was yet. But I knew one thing for sure. Ethan wasn't just arrogant. He was stealing. From the company I had given 15 years to. And with the Q2 audit just 2 weeks away, he was about to find out what happens when the guy you demote is the same guy holding all the receipts. I didn't sleep much that night. Not out of panic, out of clarity. For the first time in weeks, things made sense. The demotion, the cold shoulders, the secrecy, it was never about leadership style. It was about removing the only person who actually knew how the system worked. Me. I was the firewall, and Ethan needed me out of the way to cook the numbers. But what he didn't realize is that I've lived through worse storms than him. I've been through DOT audits during fuel shortages, dealt with freight crashes in December snow, even held this company together during a ransomware scare in 2018. I knew how to survive chaos. But now, I had to survive him. The final confirmation came 2 days later. I was walking past the second-floor conference room, the one with the glass walls and motion lights. No one was in there, but the projector was still on. Ethan had left his laptop open. Something told me to take a look. I didn't touch the laptop, just read the title of the presentation on the screen. Phase 3 Rollout. Third-party freight optimization. Internal audit not required. My stomach dropped. Internal audit not required? That's when I knew Ethan wasn't just cutting corners. He was actively trying to dodge the audit. And worse, he was probably selling those fake contracts to someone outside, maybe through shell vendors or preferred partners. I didn't have the full picture yet, but I didn't need it. Not anymore. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was theft, corporate fraud, maybe even federal crime. I went back to my desk, sat down, and stared at the wall. I could feel my heart thudding, not with fear, but with control. Pure, cold control. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't storm into the GM's office and demand my job back. No. That's not how you win against men like Ethan. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with silence, with proof, with precision. That night, I built a timeline. I cross-referenced Ethan's suspicious vendor logs with real shipment data. I marked every inconsistency with red tags. I even noted the gaps in software timestamps. Little details only someone like me would catch. It took 6 hours. I didn't eat, didn't check my phone, just built the map. And once it was done, I stared at it, all of it, spread across 3 screens in my home office. My entire career had led to this one map, this one shot. And I knew, when the auditors walked through those doors in less than 2 weeks, I wouldn't say a single word. I would just hand them the truth. And Ethan? He wouldn't see it coming. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing had changed. My badge beeped at the gate. The same flickering hallway light blinked above my desk. Ethan walked by me on his way to the upstairs office, nodded like I was just another body in a chair. I nodded back. Not a word. Just enough eye contact to make him feel comfortable. That was the key now. Don't alert the prey. For the next 10 days, I became invisible. I arrived early, left late, smiled when spoken to. I kept my head down, but my eyes wide open. Every spare second I had, I was collecting files, logs, screenshots, internal messages, timestamp delivery notes that proved discrepancies in vendor shipments. I rebuilt the entire back-end audit, the one Ethan thought he had destroyed, from archive backups I'd made months ago. Just in case. I reached out to a friend of mine, Julia, who worked in corporate compliance at a rival freight company. We collaborated once during a multi-vendor emergency response project. I told her I had something she might want to look at, something that could shake a company from the inside. She said, "Send it. Quietly. No names yet." I created a burner email, encrypted the folder, and sent the timeline. Within 24 hours, she replied, "If half of this is accurate, they're looking at internal fraud. Possibly RICO. You need to lawyer up and stay quiet." I wasn't planning to go public. Not yet. I just wanted the audit to run its course, with all the real data in their hands. And for that, I had to play the most convincing role of my life, the loyal employee who didn't know a thing. While Ethan was upstairs making flashy PowerPoints and bragging about his automation rollout, I was 3 floors down inside our legacy storage server, pulling shipment logs he didn't know still existed. I printed every major inconsistency. I labeled each folder by week, then created a master index with references. It was surgical, untraceable. The irony? Every tool I used, every database, every code, every process, was something I had built. He thought he'd erase me, but all he'd done was sharpen me. One afternoon, Ethan called a team meeting, said the Q2 audit would go smoothly, and there was no need for stress. He even joked about how some of the old guys don't like the new systems, but that modernization sometimes leaves people behind. The room chuckled. I smiled too. He had no idea that the entire time he was laughing, I had the whistleblowing report saved in 3 locations, one of them mailed anonymously to our corporate HQ. He didn't know I had already created a secondary contact trail with the lead auditor through my personal Gmail, masked behind a dummy name. I gave them all the logs, pointed out the anomalies, and offered to stay out of the way unless they needed clarification. They replied with a single line, "We've reviewed your files. We'll handle this discreetly." 10 days passed. Then, the date of the audit arrived. That morning, I wore my best shirt. Not because I had anything to prove, but because I already knew what was coming. Ethan walked in confidently, shaking hands with the two external auditors like they were guests at his birthday party. He had a presentation ready. Color-coded slides. Optimism in every word. He didn't notice the third person in the room, quiet, older, with a legal pad. He didn't see that she wasn't smiling. By noon, the auditors had already asked for raw routing logs. Ethan stalled, saying, "The system had updated recently." One of the auditors glanced at the other. That was all I needed. I stood up from my desk, walked up the stairs calmly, and knocked on the glass door. "Excuse me," I said. "I have something that might help." Ethan looked stunned. The auditors looked curious. I placed the binder on the table. 143 pages. Color-coded. Verified. I said, "I used to manage all of this before the restructuring." And then I walked out, without waiting for a single reply. I didn't return to the audit room that day. I didn't have to. By the time I got back to my desk, two security officers were quietly speaking with HR outside Ethan's office. Someone had printed more binders, exact replicas of the files I handed over, and copies were now circulating upstairs. That evening, I stayed late, pretending to catch up on routine updates. Around 6:45 p.m., I heard hurried footsteps coming down the hallway. Ethan was walking fast, phone pressed to his ear, face pale. He passed my desk, barely looking at me, but I heard him whisper, No, they don't have everything. There's no proof I signed off on that vendor." "Okay, I'll talk to them tomorrow." Liar. The next morning, the glass conference room blinds were shut, but you could still see silhouettes, hands pointing, someone pacing. By noon, Ethan was no longer in his office. His computer had been locked out remotely. His name badge was disabled. 2 days later, an all-staff email announced an urgent leadership transition. The official story? Personal leave for medical reasons. But everyone knew, and no one asked questions. I didn't say a word. 2 weeks passed. Then one afternoon, I got a call from a restricted number. I picked up, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, "Alex, it's Ethan." I didn't say anything. Just waited. He sounded different. Broken. Tired. "I know it was you. Look, man, I messed up. Okay, I got ahead of myself. The numbers weren't even that bad when you left. I just wanted to prove I could do it alone." Another long pause. "I heard you helped the auditors. Please, they're reopening the financials. I don't know what they found, but corporate's involved now. If there's anything you can do, if you could just talk to them, maybe give some context." Context? This man had taken credit for my systems, demoted me in front of the entire floor, wiped my name off the reporting chain, and now he wanted my help. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. I said calmly, "Ethan, I gave them the truth. That's all. What they do with it isn't up to me." He tried again. "But if they see me as the scapegoat, they'll cut me off. My options. My severance. Please, man, I've got a kid. A house. I'm not saying I didn't screw up, but this could ruin me." I could hear the panic now. The man who walked in like a king was now begging like a child. I ended the call with just one line. "You should have thought about all that before you erased me." Click. That was the last time we ever spoke. In the weeks that followed, corporate announced a full-scale systems overhaul. I was asked, formally, this time, to help rebuild it. As a contractor, triple the pay, total autonomy, and direct reporting access to regional leadership. I never stepped back into that same office. But I did attend Ethan's exit interview remotely as a silent observer. He looked like a ghost on the Zoom screen. He kept glancing at his phone, waiting for someone to jump in to defend him. No one did. And when the HR rep asked if he had any final comments, he just said, "I never thought it'd end like this. I thought I had time." Then the screen went black. It's been almost a year since that day. Ethan's LinkedIn went dark 2 months after his termination. I heard through a mutual that he moved states, trying to rebuild somewhere quieter, away from the whispers. I don't know what happened to his career. And, honestly, I don't care. As for me, I took a long break. No meetings. No spreadsheets. No pretending. I rented a cabin up in Vermont. Just me, silence, and a stack of old journals I hadn't touched in years. The kind of solitude that hurts at first, then heals you in ways you didn't know you needed. I remembered who I was before all of this. Before I trained someone who turned on me. Before I handed over loyalty to a system that didn't value it. And when I finally came back to work, on my own terms, I had boundaries. I had clarity. Today, I run my own consultancy, small, quiet, efficient. I choose who I work with. I choose the hours. I choose the energy I allow in my space. People still ask me sometimes, "Do you ever regret not fighting louder? Not making it public? You had the chance to burn it all down." And I smile. Because revenge doesn't have to be fire and fury. Sometimes, it's silence. Sometimes, it's watching someone beg and choosing not to answer. I learned that dignity isn't about holding power. It's about knowing you have it and choosing grace anyway. And Ethan? He taught me the most important lesson of my life. Never train someone who is too insecure to respect the hands that built them. So to anyone out there, if you're in a job where you're constantly overlooked, dismissed, or disrespected, don't wait for them to see your worth. Show it to yourself first. And if you ever get the chance to walk away with your head held high, take it. It'll sting. But one day, when they come crawling back, you won't even need to look down, because you'll already be too far ahead. Thanks for listening to my story. If it made you feel something, even just for a moment, consider subscribing. I've got more stories. Real ones. About people who fought back without screaming. And won.